My name's Beck McHearing, and I live near Augathella in Southwest. I'm always been brought up on the land with beef cattle.
So I'm Adam Coffey. My wife Jacinda and I run a family beef cattle enterprise up near Miriamvale, on the central coast of Queensland, I guess you call it.
Yeah, so I'm Stephen Tully, fifth generation sheep and wool grazier, now goat grazier from Bungadairy Station, Quilpie, 1,000 k's west of Brisbane. I have 5 kids and we have a pretty good station life.
I'm Philip Crocker and I live on a mixed grain and grazing property at Roma, or Muckadilla, 40 kilometres west of Roma. And I'm there with my parents and my wife and 3 young boys. So they enjoy living on the farm, and I feel a privilege to be able to do it.
So Emma Knight, councillor on the Young Producers Council, which is a new initiative of AgForce, live on a property 10,000 acres in between Roma and Taroom, have been part of the beef industry, the northern beef industry, wholly and solely for about the last 12 years, and grew up on a property. Outside of the northern beef industry actually, but yeah, have always been involved in the beef industry.
Russell Hall, cane director on the newly AgForce cane. We came in, I think, March 2020. So my background is grandfather got a return soldiers farm after the war. So they grew tobacco and had dairy. Then in '68 we got cane assignment, so we went into cane. And then my father, we started growing rice. So my father was on the board of the Rice Marketing Board and also Council of Ag and QFF. So it's sort of a little bit in the family that we sort of represent ag.
We're not generational farmers, I guess, so we're new entrants to the industry. We had a background in corporate ag management prior to trying to do our own thing. And I guess I've seen a lot of countryside as a result of that. We've lived and worked in almost every state, I think, probably outside of South Australia. So.
I was born into farming, born into grazing. As I said, we're 5th generation and the original property's next door, so it's funny that we moved from Ireland and then haven't moved since. So yeah, I've always loved it. Home videos of me at 2 being in the middle of sheep. I like the wide open spaces, love the freedom, love the independence, and I just love the challenges. So yes, the challenges get hard, but I love the challenges every day. Yeah.
I guess I never really had any interest in doing anything else. I suffered through school and got it done so that we could go back, so I could go back onto the land. It has always been my interest, and I have actually worked, in different jobs over the years, just things with young family and our work situation at times and things like that. And I've worked in a few different industries and a few very different roles, and none of them have ever lit my fire like agriculture. We
grow wheat, barley, chickpeas and sorghum, and we run breeders. Myself and my wife have got our own breeders, and we also run backgrounder cattle, which we run away on pasture country and then bring back for fattening on oats most years.
I became involved in the beef industry by default, I think. Our family's always been part of the beef industry. It's always been a passion of mine, I suppose. When I finished Year 12, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, so I headed to the north beef industry up around Katherine and all throughout the territory, and that really sparked that fire inside of me.
I think the big thing about agriculture for me is it's a lifestyle. Any other job that I've had is a job, and whereas agriculture it's our entire life. It's bringing up our family in that lifestyle. We're all involved all the time. You live it and breathe it, and so you either love it or you don't, I guess. But and so it's really important that you do love it. But it takes over our entire life, but in a good way.
So the dog issue, and it's one of the reasons I first got involved with AgForce in the late 90s as a very young producer, and the dog issue was just raising its head at that stage. which we hadn't had for a generation, and a lot of those skills had been lost for a generation because of the success of actually fencing. And 10 to 15 years later, that was costing us hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, which was unsustainable.
So it's such an interesting time with, we have a lot of challenges from from green groups, other people with vested interests to maybe see a reduction in red meat production or totally get rid of it. We do what we do because we sincerely believe that we can make a positive impact on the environment that we operate in. We wouldn't do it otherwise, and we sleep at night pretty comfortably knowing that whilst we don't get everything right, we give it our best shot.
The way I look at the sugar industry, it's about the only crop that can be grown on the whole east coast of Australia through cyclone, flood, drought, and will still produce something. And can become 100% environmentally friendly with the right government policy and the right investors.
When fencing became a solution, and our fence is 130 kilometres, most of my time I'm at home on my own. We're just employing a new person now because of the fencing, and that's a great example of what fencing does. But we've got 130 kilometres of fence that is maintained regularly. As soon as it rains, we patrol that fence, and that is allowing us to get back into serious production and meet all our production goals. We've had average season now for 2 years. That's average in rain. That's just, one was slightly under, one was just on average. The response to our country was absolutely phenomenal. I have not seen that. Our lambing percentage has gone from 4 years ago to having 20 lambs to having 100% this year. We've never done that on average rainfall, ever, even before fencing.
So some of the challenges that we face are agronomic. We've got to make sure we're on the western end of the farming zone, and you've got to dot your I's and cross your T's to make everything fall in place so that you can continue to make profit and have good environmental outcomes.
To be sustainable and environmentally friendly, the mills have got to probably set up at the end of it. We've got to move to whole crop harvesting. So then you've got a problem with logistics of not only shifting the cane crop, you're shifting the whole crop. So your bin fleet will have to expand. The rail system's already there. So it's mainly the factories coming up to speed, but then the government's got to help out with mandating maybe a 20 or 30% ethanol blend. They've got to turn, at the moment the miller gets like 1 cent a kilowatt. If the mill becomes a retailer, he can start charging 25 cents a kilowatt. So all of a sudden, your mind starts to boggle where it could actually end up. Then we go into biomass harvesting, so we've got no more cane burning. So that's another carbon positive part of the industry. And the environmental part, I believe we're already doing our part there. We've got huge recycle systems in, we capture all our water. Our testing is showing that our water is of better quality at the end of the cane drill than it is coming in on the cane drill. We've
put a lot of effort into subdivision. We're not cell grazing, but we rotate cattle. We understand the importance of pasture rest and the intensity of grazing. And we're really starting to focus hard on our soils. It's very early days for us, but we've entered into a soil carbon agreement. That's an opportunity that we see. Really, I think obviously there's a potential monetary gain from sequestering soil carbon and selling those credits. Whether we can actually increase soil organic carbon on our place yet remains to be seen, but we sort of see it as something that goes hand in hand with what we're going to do anyway. So if we can increase our soil organic carbon, we increase moisture, nutrient infiltration. It's a win-win for production and profitability. So, and when I relate that back to this whole argument around the sustainability of beef or red meat production, ruminants, there's a really positive story to tell there, and there's a lot of science coming out now, maybe suggesting that the way that we've looked at methane emissions from cattle now looking at it in a cyclical sense, that we're not probably as bad as we've been made out to be. Surprise, surprise. So, the opportunity in that, personally, as beef cattle producers and as a greater industry, to really to really drive our message home, which, as I said, is a really positive one, and to the greater community. I don't think we've really had that opportunity before.
I'm so passionate about our industry because we do so much good. You know, our animal welfare standards, and it's just such a wonderful community to be a part of. We're proactive, we are engaged, we are wanting to ensure the sustainability and profitability of our industry remains.
But we just need to look after our backyard, do it well, have credibility behind us. Don't worry so much about the 5 to 10% that are always going to be trolls, always going to be negative. We need to take the middle ground where they want the good story, we can sell the good story, we know we've got a good story. We need to be positive about our own industry. If we're not positive about our own industry, how can we sell it to somebody else? We are very passionate about it. I think that noise has always been there, but that's not to say we dismiss it, but we don't dwell on it. We go forward with a positive story. We have the facts behind us, and we will win in the long run.
I think that as a whole, agriculture in Queensland has fantastic environmental skills, animal husbandry skills. I think that we're doing it so well. No producer can be effective long term unless they're looking after their country and they're looking after their animals. We are the most invested in looking after both the environment and the animals, and that message gets very skewed along the way to the public. I think that there's this terrible perception that we're all about making money, and we don't really care what else happens along the way, and yet you can't make money and be viable long term unless you're looking after the inputs that go into your industry.